Welcome back to the Air Crown Crypto channel, where we are once again insanely bullish as Bitcoin does reapproach the $44,000 level, referencing some of the content that I've been seeing across the web right now. I do want to address a lot of nuances in the current situation that's going on, talk about what I'm referring to as the chart of the day, and follow up on this last like 3 week is what I'm trying to say, thread of analysis on Bitcoin, of which first we were looking for a bounce of $35,000. We got that, then slowly but surely that bear trap up to the lovely price of $41,000 at 382 Fibonacci retracement. Then continuation to the 0.5 at 45, plus pullback back down to 41.5. All of that is so far solidified, and now we once again have something on the board that is going to denote a potential major continuation event with some next targets in mind. So we'll get into that in a second here. I do want to address something right before we get into the actual content of the day, and that is I want to reference my good friend Mr. Faraz over here. I've actually gone ahead and retweeted his tweet. Just wanted to give him a quick shout out because he is like one of the guys in the metaverse space that I think is actually like doing something really high quality, really unique. And you can see just from like the level of quality of his work right here, this is, you know, this is just head and shoulders at least above anything else that I've seen personally. Of course, you know, I'm happy to be open-minded about that if someone has, you know, some other cool stuff to show me. But ultimately, this is a space that, you know, I am definitely looking forward to in the future, being that I'm a fucking, you know, I'm a VR nerd. I love my Quest, and soon enough he'll actually be having a little bit of an event tonight, so I wanted to give him a quick shout out. He's a good friend, so wanted to give him a little bit back. So with that in mind, I'll actually leave a link in the description below. He's going to be doing some event with like the CryptoPunks tonight, I believe it is. And there you go. All right, sweet. So let's jump into it right now. I want to follow up on yesterday's most important time frame, the most important thing that was happening the soonest on the daily, and that was the daily stochastic momentum. As you can see right over here, we did fulfill the criteria needed to flip the daily stochastic momentum back onto the upside, of which that confirms two things very critically right here, with another two more to come, which would, well, be rather popular. Now, here's the thing, and I do want to address this right off the bat here. What I've been seeing across the web recently is like very aggressiveness, boolah-ishness, of which, you know, it always kind of makes me a little bit more cautious in these scenarios. So as always, I want to not just be offering up tangible validation areas for, in this case, the upside continuation, but also what would constitute an invalidation and then downside targets that likely emerge from that. So right on over here on the daily, yes, we did get that nice cross the upside. I really want to see this one have follow through for at least another couple days, but obviously, you know, one step at a time, right? You know, we can always go as far as, you know, as fast as each and every daily close, which of course is at 00 UTC or 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in order to keep the daily stochastic momentum to the upside, we need to see it continue to remain to close above $43,000. This is actually very, 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 very important for the short-term time frame analysis, because yeah, actually short-term time frames do look like a bit of a pullback here for what it's worth. Anyways, in this case, we do see it holding within the bullish control zone, so that is good. So obviously that would be implicative that boolahs are still within control. And what we really want to see next, or the other thing that we also have confirmed as well, which, you know, what never really got changed, but was the DMI right here remaining green. That will remain green as long as Bitcoin is above 39,500. So obviously, as long as the stochastic criteria is met, well, the DMI will follow, of course. But in this case, the two next things that I really want to see is one, ADX start to flip back up, meaning that the advanced decline ratio is starting to go something like that. That'll look really, really good. For example, the last time we saw something relatively similar to this on this setup where we had green DMI, we had daily stochastic moving to the upside, and also ADX increasing, was actually back on over here in early October. As you can see, ADX starts to increase. The daily stochastic momentum is within the bullish control zone, and of course, DMI is also headed up. And that was pretty much within this run off of the last major low. I wouldn't say the last major low, but a major low, the $40,000 area that we did see in late September, early October, before Bitcoin went up to its current all-time high, that is, of course. So with that in mind, there is one other major thing that I'm watching right now that I think holds a shit ton of weight. It's actually, you know, one of my most favorite indicators. It's also free, and you can find it over here on the daily, specifically over here on my regular charts, and that is the daily BBWP. We are seeing it collapse, absolutely fucking collapse right here, all the way back down to single-digit percentiles. So volatility measuring volatility measuring the dispersion of returns is essentially suggesting that as we see it contract, it doesn't suggest, like, it is mathematically programmed, as we see it contract, then naturally we will be looking for an expansion phase. Now, typically speaking, in order to denote an expansion phase, I want to see not just the BBWP pointed upwards, but also above the moving average on it, with the moving average also having positive slope. For reference, I'll just give up my settings right now because I know I'm going to get some questions about this, but I'm running at 13 length, 252 look back, and the moving average that I'm using is a 5 SMA, just so you know. So if we were to see that start to turn up as well, alongside these criteria continuing to be fulfilled, that will be a very, 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 very positive, or I wouldn't say positive, but positive for the boo laws. I do want to remain neutral here. As always, we are traders. We're not fucking moon boys nor doom boys. Realistically, moon boys and doom boys have been, sorely let down the last, for a while now, just because Bitcoin's been more or less in a macro range, a massive range that is, but a macro range nonetheless. Anyways, in this case, yes, I would be having targets up somewhere around, probably deep 40s, maybe even low 50s. That is going to be in line over here on this chart that we've been following on. The good old LIPR line still keeping it steady to the about 618 Fibonacci retracement here on the macro range, that is. So low of 29,500, high of about 69,000 in this case. Also a great number right there. And then the 200 simple on the daily, represented by the swipe moving average, going to be starting to flow within that region as well. So a natural sort of breakout target if Bitcoin does remain fulfilling that criteria. So again, that will be fulfilled as long as Bitcoin is now closing dailies above $43,000. Okay, but in the shorter term timeframes, there is a bit of another look in this case, or at least, actually, sorry, before we get into that, what I want to say is I need to talk about invalidation criteria. So naturally speaking, look, if the daily stochastic momentum does close below, or the daily close below $43,000, and the stochastic momentum actually flips back down here and loses the bullish control zone, that's going to be a pretty damn good warning signal. It wouldn't be the finality of that signal for what it's worth, although I'd say that probably would be it for me, just personally speaking. But in this case, if you're going off a straight price action, where would that be? That would be below $41,000 in this case. Below $41,000, okay, there is not really, there's not any more short-term hopium for this asset. And I'd be looking for this run to retrace the vast majority of it back down to the, let's just say, mid $30,000 territory. Don't really have a specific target for that, but anywhere, anywhere in this area right here would be fair game. I do not, however, think that Bitcoin would have enough liquidity for a major downside continuation crash event from our current area if that were to happen. And again, I'm actually biased still towards the upside. The only thing that's really making me want to reconsider, or at least be very forthright with, of course, an invalidation condition, is because I just see a lot of that very optimistic bullishness where it's like Bitcoin moves up fucking $2,000 and then people start talking about, okay, back to all-time highs, baby. No, fuck you, man. Why are you too bearish talking about all-time highs? Okay, 100,000, 100,000. It's like, no, 100,000 is too bearish. 500,000. It's the whole game, man. It's just a race to infinity or a race to zero. And realistically, we want to remain curtailed in our expectations to be more realistic, maybe. Be more realistic. Anyways. And the reason why I said that is because, well, the open interest over here is, as you can see, not in a critical region just yet. Now, we did see a big leg up from yesterday to today. I do think that this does continue the upside, to be quite honest with you, as we've been saying for a while now. This has been kind of playing out our LARP lines rather well, not to toot my own horn there, but, when you have something that's been working well, you go with it until it stops working, essentially. But for right now, when I'm looking for those major catastrophic downside events in this case, I want to see open interest above about 13.5 billion minimum in order to produce that 20% down move minimum, typically as well. We can backtest this going in the last year, even further than that, but basically in the last year, anytime we've seen above about 13.5 billion, the downside moves off of those local highs were 20% or more. Actually, can reference this one over here in March before going from 60,000 down to about 50,000. Can reference this one over here from the April highs before 65 to 30. We can reference this one over here from September before going from 53 to 40. And so on and so forth. So I don't want to go through the full rigmarole in this case, but ultimately, if and when Bitcoin does get back above that critical number, that's where I'd start to say, hey, this is not an immediately concerning thing, but it does suggest that when Bitcoin does start to print, a local high, we need to now come into the greater macro context of this asset and define okay, if this is a lower high, then this is a problem, because very likely it will lead towards that next 20% move to the downside, maybe even more. And if it doesn't, well, then perhaps just a bit of a shallow pullback into another higher low, of which Bitcoin does have its current higher low going in on right here. right around about 41,500, that spike low that we saw from the other day. Anyways, in this case, I do want to call this out, the good old Mark B cock and balls, the good old Mark B cock and balls. Absolutely love that guy. And let me actually go to a fresh chart for this one. And what do we have right here? We do have a left shoulder, we have a double head, and we have a right shoulder right there. It's completely fine. We have a very obvious and natural neckline right around about 44,500 on a daily, or the same sort of validation criteria for a range resolution breakout, which very likely leads into a daily for the 4 hour. It's the same shit as before. $45,000 on a 4 hour closure. Wouldn't mess around with a lower term time frame than that, because we have seen some it's probably more likely to be a fake out in this case, as we are kind of talking about a big move. Being that it is a technical formation, we do have a technical target to be made as well. I believe we did this yesterday. It's pointed somewhere up towards like the mid $55,000 region, which does make sense because we would be naturally expecting a bit of activity right around that last major catastrophic meltdown that we saw from Bitcoin, coming off of the October, and then on the downside, the late November consolidation phase right there. So that would be an area of hot contention, very likely going to be stops along the way. Again, the 200 simple on the daily plus that 618 Fibonacci retracement are going to be some very obvious pullback regions as well. But assuming that pullback just essentially does not come back down below our current local low, which is about 41.5, then it is well, very likely okay. Here's the thing though, and I do want to represent this rather well, or at least as best as I can. On the lower term time frames and even the medium term time frames over here, we do see stochastic momentum starting to turn down. Of course, this is like not a death sentence by any stretch of the imagination, but it does suggest that maybe a little bit of a short-term correction first, and then if that correction turns into a reversal, which obviously would be notified by hitting some of those invalidation conditions that we overlaid on the daily stochastic, and also just the that last higher low, that would be obviously a lot more concerning for the boo laws. And that is why I really want to keep it in the back of my mind's eye that it does feel like one of those times where most people are kind of looking for the same thing to happen, which is a little bit concerning, but hey, doesn't mean that it can't happen. Just sometimes it has been a very bad signal in the past. Anyways, looking at 4 hour stochastic momentum right here, we will actually see this one naturally turn down with any sort of a closure below 44,631. Obviously, that is coming in another hour and 3 minutes and 55 seconds. So, even if it does turn down right here, again, just, suggests a little bit of a short-term pullback. Can come down as far as, $42,500 to $43,000. That's really not an issue. Again, that wouldn't even take out the daily condition. I'm going to take a sip of this water. I am absolutely parched right now. Absolutely sunburnt as well. This is like our last full day in Dubai here, so I'm trying to soak up as much as I can, and that's also my own reminder to let you know that while we're over here in Dubai, I do have limited connectivity to the internet, so it's not necessarily ideal. I'm trying my best to get back to people as best as I can, but understand that there might be a bit of a lapse in response. And also, well, we'll be back soon enough anyways, and then I'll probably need like a day or two of recovery, and then good to go. All right, cool. So yes, that is on the board right there. Keep in mind though, this would be a more corrected signal than a reversal signal as it is, as we do see that the DMI is still positive here, and the ADX is kind of flattish, I would say, with HVP. Not really give me a clean and clear signal, which I really want to see on like the 4 hour right here on 4 hour BBWP, which is actually suggesting a corrective signal as well, as we do see contraction phase. So when I see volatility contract plus momentum also just pointed in a new direction alongside that contraction phase, typically I'm looking for a correction, not a reversal. Of course, it can can turn out to be a reversal, but you typically see like that happen in two ways. So in this case, I look at that first and foremost. 3 hour is showing what is going to be down below 44,300. Bi hourly is showing what is showing below 44,500, and hourly is showing below 44,000 bucks or so. So does Bitcoin play out a little bit of a short-term correction? Yeah, definitely possible. Where could potential targets on that be? Like I said, between about 42.5, let's say, more like 42.6 and about 43 even or so. Either one of those is fine. Ultimately, however, I'm mostly looking at the daily right here. The other lower term timeframes I think are less important in this particular instance. 12 hour also pointed up as long as we're above 42,250, and 6 hour I believe is way up there and will turn down below about 44. I'm actually curious to see what the 2 day says. Yeah, 2 day will stay with upside momentum as long as Bitcoin's above 44,200. Keep in mind though, this is not closing tonight, it's closing tomorrow night. So what does that essentially suggest? It does suggest that if we are going to see Bitcoin emerge from this region, it very likely does happen before Friday closure, just for what it's worth. So I would say this is a little bit of a ticking time bomb in this particular scenario. All right, I think we'll end on this yet again. I think that this is just the most easy to read chart, and says a lot, obviously. Which is over here on the secondary chart. I've been referencing this a lot. And in fact, if I'm just looking at the secondary chart again, before Friday closure, yeah, if this is going to emerge, I do expect it to actually push on somewhere around about $46,000 or so. Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest with you. And again, if we do get a bit of a bull trap here, really only looking back down somewhere around, 30, 35, 36-ish region, maybe. Yeah, something like that. Anyways, I'll once again go through this whole rigmarole, and it is this. We have on this chart 3 indicators that when combined together have a pretty profound signal, actually, historically speaking, for the last 3 to 4 years. It's had a pretty high hit rate. I'll run you through it very quickly here. See the 3-day MACD pointed to the upside. Just blindly playing the 3-day MACD has been pretty damn good, and we also see that's actually coming in from the same area that we did see over the summer, that being the July bear trap from 30,000 to about 53, and then obviously 69. But just we'll go through a few of these iterations right here. The last iteration that we had was early October. That was obviously this move from about mid 40s all the way up to 69, so rather powerful, you might say. Next one was, of course, the MACD, or sorry, not the MACD, but it is the MACD, but in July off the summer. So this one go from about 30s to 53, not bad. And then we saw this one over here coming out of the last major consolidation in the $40,000 to $30,000 range in February of last year, not this year, but last year. And that was lifting you off from about mid 30s all the way up to basically 65. And then we'll do one more right here coming out of October 2020 actually, and that led you up all the way from about 11,000 to 20,000, and well, onwards and upwards from there. Next portion of this signal that constructs this is the white moving average on this chart, the white 20 simple moving average. When Bitcoin reclaims that alongside having a positive 3-day MACD cross the upside, then the signal has been strengthened a little bit more. So Bitcoin either needs to be above it or freshly reclaiming it. Those have been higher hit rate. If you do want to backtest it further than what we saw right here, obviously the ones that we backtest are pretty good as is. So, but I would say that adds a bit of further confluence to it. And then the third and final piece, and I'd even say that this one might even be the most important portion of this, is the PMAR. The PMAR measuring the distance that price action is away from the moving average on this indicator, which I'm having as a 20 VWMA. And what do we see? Well, we do see that anytime that it has reclaimed the white moving average on it, those have been some pretty impressive signals. So I'll just highlight this right here. I don't know why I have all these red circles, but I'll just get rid of them for now. For right now, they're not necessary. But basically what I've done, hey, it's not on this chart. Oh, it's on this chart. Whoopsies. All right, well, whatever. It's all the same. Anyways, the green vertical bars do represent the times where we have all 3 of those conditions met, actually. So 3-day MACD plus 20 simple plus PMR typically happens in that format as well. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the last 3 years, going back to October 2019, one of those iterations was a terrible signal and a losing signal. Although, I mean, well, yeah, it was just straight up losing signal. I was going to say, yeah, if you waited a year, you would have gotten like about 2 weeks to get out in profit before getting dumped for the flu dump. But ultimately, looking at this, the results have actually been pretty consistent with each other, which I thought was interesting. Even just based off of this signal right here, I'll measure a few of them out so that you can see. This one produced about a 40% move, or a little bit over 40% move. This one over here from April 2020 produced about a 50-ish, a little bit more than 50% move. Then we have this one over here where we do have from that to next major high was about 80% move. Then we have this one over here, which was started in like mid 30s all the way up to basically here. That's another 50-ish plus percent move. Then we have this one right here, about a 35% move. And then we have this one right here from the summer of 2021. Take it from the closing basis to the next major high, 58%. We have this one right here from mid 40s to 69, which is 40. And then we have another signal right here where we have 1, 3-day MACD cross the upside, 2, price action is reclaiming the white 20 simple as it is right now, and 3, the PMAR is above the moving average. So just playing with numbers here and keeping in mind those more macro targets as well. We saw on the lower end from signal given to next major high about 35%, and if you actually do go back and test the amount of time taken between those signals and like the next major high, usually about a month to 2 months on average, a month to 2 months on average. So it does take some time and patience, obviously, and price action will naturally ebb and flow in the shorter term timeframes in the interim. But in this case, remember, we do have a measured move at about $55,000. See what we look like right here. What would $55,000 look like? That would be actually around about 30%, which was the lower end. Actually, let me take it from the high of there. That was about the lower end of that signal. Or sorry, on the technical formation. If we were to take, one of the more interesting of those, which would be about what 70%, or let's just say 50%. I mean, just doing some bad mental math, obviously that puts you back up into like 60s, something like that. So is that relevant over time? Maybe yes. Something like this, perhaps. It's still within the cards, I guess. I suppose. Ultimately, though, is this likely going to take some time? Whether Bitcoin does like this and maybe another thing like this, perhaps yes. We have no fucking idea. There's no way to absolutely know that. Maybe Bitcoin does this, boom, and then does that. Maybe Bitcoin does this, and then whoop, does one of those. There is also another thing that I'd like to be on record as saying. I do think that worst case scenario for Bitcoin, if it does ultimately break down, is somewhere around about the mid $20,000 region, if it even chooses that route to begin with, of which there are several reasons to be adequately preparing for more downside over time. But for right now, I do still see more signals to the upside than the downside. I kind of remain with the current narrative that I've been espousing here on this channel, and of course, as always, it flows with invalidations and validations. I hope that this content has served you well. I'm going to be hanging out in Faraz's spaces thingy tonight, and perhaps I'll see you there as well. With that said, take care and see you hopefully very soon.